Three, two, one. Here we go. Welcome, everyone. I want to talk about voice and touch because I walked into a restaurant recently and they had a setup for touch screens so that you could order your selections with the touch screen. I'm thinking to myself, you've invested all of this money into touch screens. A chain of restaurants has these touch screens set up, and I can't help but feel like touch screen is already outdated in the sense that voice is quicker than touch. Because you have to scroll through all these different menu items in order to select your choice. And with Siri, Alexa, you've got Google and Samsung all have their virtual assist or their personal assistants through voice. And that's where we're at. So why recently invest all this money into touchscreen ordering systems when the next thing and the thing that we're living in now is voice? So why not create voice ordering systems? I feel like that would be much more progressive, much more up to date, because there's nothing quicker than voice when it comes to ordering, unless you have cognition, so they can read your mind and determine exactly what you'd like to order. I don't know if we're there anytime soon, but voice is certainly a possibility. Well, now, what I've found with voice is that it's not 100% accurate. But that being said, our touch isn't 100% accurate either. We're going through the menus and we're selecting items that we don't necessarily want. And it's not easy to necessarily go back and correct it. And with voice, I can see that being the way to go because you can adjust. You can say, correction, this is what I'd like to order instead. So I feel like voice is really coming up. How does this affect people in business, people in advertising? Well, what you'd want to do is create campaigns perhaps related to audio. If we're seeing podcasts as an example, sponsorships, advertising in podcast format hasn't really taken off yet, but it's an area of consideration because it's to do with listening, it's to do with somebody's voice into a microphone, and it seems like it's the replacement for radio. So radio has been around forever, and now we're moving into podcasts, which is like we're going around full circle, because at least with podcasts, you can listen to it and you can start and stop, and it's no big deal. When I see self-driving cars coming up, though, I think video in cars will be very common. I see that as something that will happen within the next 10, 15 years, is that video will be something that is critical in cars. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But if you're looking at ordering systems in themselves, right now you go through a drive-thru, right? And you're vocally telling someone what you would like. And that someone, ideally, is Alexa or Siri, so that that person taking the orders doesn't need to be there. And I feel like we're really close to that. I don't see why we can't have that. But this touchscreen ordering system, I just thought it was curious to invest all this money. I mean, it had to have been millions of dollars just to have these machines there, and they're not even the best approach. thing about voice is it's not 100% accurate. And it's just like chatbots. Chatbots are trying to determine what types of things you want depending on what you're asking for. And I have run into countless issues with chatbots. So that's why it hasn't hit its full mainstream stride yet. But voice has been around for a while. You'd think they'd have all their kinks out. Siri's been around for many, many years. Possibly over a decade by now. If it came out, I don't recall if it was part of the first iPhone. Let's assume that it was maybe on the second iteration of the iPhone. Well, it's been out for 10 years. Then there should be enough progression there where you could have that as functionality within restaurants. So I'm finding it interesting with voice and touch. How does this impact our phones? Well, I'm wondering when we'll get to a point where we don't need so much touch screen on a phone. Because a touch screen is interesting, but it's like, I just want to speak to this device. Maybe it's like a cube, and I want it to give me all the answers. And that's sort of like what Alexa's getting to, is the fact that you can ask questions and it'll give you answers. That means I don't have to Google what the weather is on my phone. I can just ask Alexa, Siri, and whatnot, and then they tell me the weather. I don't even want to look at my screen. I don't want to have to browse. I don't want to have to go up and open my apps. I think those should all be disappeared. It's like maybe I want to write my notes down, and that's pretty much it. I think if that were the case, where the handheld device becomes this tool for recording your voice and actually actioning on what you're saying, and then perhaps a laptop or tablet or desktop where you can do productivity and be more productive, that's where you can review what you've dictated. That would be quite powerful. I see that as a very good, cohesive 1-2 punch. Because I can carry my handheld, let's call it a cube or something, around with me. And I'm not bogged down by this touch screen. And for me, it's like, I kind of want to get away from the touch screen. I want to move towards being disconnected. I think that has some power to it. And I'm so attached to my phone, like everyone else my age, and I'm thinking, how good could this possibly be for my health, being connected all this time? And the answer is, I don't think it's good at all. I don't think it's healthy at all. It becomes an addiction. But at least with voice, you're conscious about your words, you're conscious about what you're doing. I think there's a little bit more power there compared to touch screen, where you can get lost in what you're trying to do. Because it's all about creating and producing. In this world, there's so much opportunity for us to consume, but if we can move towards becoming creators and producers, that's more powerful, and that's where voice can come in. Can help us to move towards creativity and productivity. So I hope these devices will become more and more productive tools for us as we evolve. It'll be interesting to see how things evolve, that's for sure. But just thought I'd share that observation with you today. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, cheers.